Hey, what's up, man?
Hello. Hello, hello.
Well, how you doing? Oh man, there's so many things I want to fight with you about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
God, I thought Parasite was so unbelievably f***ing overrated. Holy shit.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I thought it was like a good movie, but maybe my
Mhm.
expectations were just set too high going into that. I thought it was good, but
That can happen. So, what I would ask is like what aspects of a film you generally appreciate, because a film is made up of many different aspects, right? And so in terms of like cinematography, editing, acting, like those are all pretty stellar in that film. I don't know if you disagree with that.
the cinematography seemed really cool. There were a lot of really cool shots, especially in the
Yeah.
house.
Did you check out that a crazy thing to find out about that movie, I don't know if you're aware, is like that entire mansion was actually like a set that they built.
Oh,
which is
cool.
really crazy.
Didn't know
so
that.
like
That's
really,
cool.
really great production design too.
The acting, I think, was good. A little bit harder to judge since it's a foreign film, so I don't know how much I could bullshit myself into that. You know, I'm one of those guys that thinks that
Sure.
like subs are way superior to dubs, but I don't actually know what they're saying. But I think it's better. But when it comes to like anime stuff, the story I thought was kind of cute, and then halfway through I stopped kind of caring, and then the characters all felt like more kind of like stand-ins for some kind of tropish stuff rather than characters that I actually care about at all. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it seemed like a good movie. Like I wasn't disappointed when I walked out. I wasn't thinking like, man, that movie sucked. I didn't think that at all. But yeah.
What did you enjoy from 2019 more than that?
What did I enjoy from
Because
2019?
there's one movie I liked more than that. Parasite's my number
Oh
two.
my god. I didn't hear much at all about this. I super love this movie. Fuck, I'm gonna seem like I have super casual taste in movies now. I really liked
Sure, I don't
Knives
care.
Out. I thought that movie was adorable.
that was fun.
Super liked that movie. It was super fun.
Okay,
Daniel Craig's character is
okay.
ridiculous. I thought the movie was so good. I also saw
Yeah.
1917. I liked that movie. I don't know if I liked it more than Parasite. It was interesting for sure. But yeah.
I wasn't big on 1917, but I like Knives Out.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would ask you then at this point, because you do like Knives Out, you would say that the characters and even side characters are far more interesting in that film than Parasite? Would you say that?
The characters for sure. Although to be fair, I guess Parasite isn't like a super individual character driven movie.
Yeah, it's a big ensemble in
Yeah, for sure.
Knives Out. It's like there's a crap ton of characters in that movie. Although I don't know, because like your criticism with Parasite is you felt it to be a little, I guess character wise, like kind of like, I don't know if you said cliche, something along those lines.
Or like tropish. Like I just didn't really care about any
Yeah,
of them that much, I
tropish,
guess.
right?
Yeah.
Isn't Knives Out like a movie that's inherently tropish? Like, isn't that like a super, like the entire
Yeah,
thing
for
is basically
sure.
like
You have, like-
recreating a popular genre.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Yeah. But I guess like in that type of like comedy-ish movie, that's kind of like like for instance, like if I see like any superhero movie, it's going to be incredibly
Yeah.
tropish. But like that's okay because I'm just watching a superhero movie. It's kind of what I would want, I guess.
But you're saying if it goes for like a goofier tone, then you're able to.
Yeah, I guess it
into
just
it more?
depends on like the context of the movie in terms of like what I'm
Okay.
looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, but I found Parasite, to be really successful at the comedic elements it was doing too. That's something that's really particular, I feel, about Korean movies is they do a really, really great blend and balance between hilarious moments and then super serious moments where a lot of films try to do that and they feel conflicting, or the silly parts take away from the more dramatic parts because it makes you take them less seriously. But there's a lot of great Korean movies out there that manage to combine both of those elements in a way that doesn't detract from the other, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I can understand what you mean by that. I don't really feel like super strongly attached to that. Damn, hold on, hold on, I gotta think now I have you. What other movie takes I want to fight with you about? I watched your
Sure.
entire dive into Kimba. That seemed like a fun adventure.
I'm still feeling the burnout from it because I'm trying to do my Lion King review, which is what I was supposed to have done that entire time. And Kimba took me away from doing that review. And so it feels like despite working on two massive projects in a row, it feels like I'm literally just working on the same one this entire time. This past couple months has been really tough motivation-wise, but I'm still getting stuff done. The fucking pandemic and shit. But...
Yeah. What a strange movie. The Lion King movie. Just, Every time I look at movies like that, I'm like, why? But who thought it? But then you just look at what they gross. And it's like, oh, yeah,
and
okay.
then you realize that it's the most successful animated film of all time, highest grossing, billions of dollars. Not even kidding.
Yeah,
literally number one.
all of them, because there's been like 6
yeah.
fucking different Disney movies that were all live action and were all like really, but then you look at what they gross and it's like, oh, okay, makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's Jon Favreau's fault. He started it with Jungle Book in 2016, I think. And then they were like, oh, we don't even have to write new stories. This changes everything.
Yep.
I mean,
although I will fight on this, and we're not going to fight. We'll agree, but like, it's consumers are every bit as much to blame as the studios.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, because you know, people will cry about how we want new movies, Like, okay, well, why don't you go fucking watch any of them?
Exactly.
They're out there.
Be the change you want to see. Otherwise, it's not going to change.
What did you think about? What was your overall take on Tenet? I think did you do like a 3 or 4 minute thing of that? I don't know if I watched.
Man, no. I was actually. I wanted to do a quickie on it, but I decided to wait until I had some good footage for it, meaning digital release. So I might make a quickie on it. I guess it's out this month now, digitally. I think I heard your take on it, and I don't think I disagree from what I remember. It was a very Nolan-y movie. The aspects that you would say define a film as being a Nolan film are way too exaggerated in this film to the point where it's basically a parody of itself.
It feels weird to me because it felt to me like also, if I ever say anything, I'm very blunt on my streams. If I ever say anything where you're like, oh, as a film expert, you're just so fucking stupid and wrong, you can always call me out on that, okay? No problem. Just saying.
I don't need you to think of me as having like an elevated... like, I didn't go to film school. I'm literally just a dude that's like passionate about things, you know?
It felt to me like...
it's just as valid, just as legitimate.
Okay, sure. I felt like with Dunkirk, it really felt to me, especially after Interstellar, it feels like if you follow the Nolan films, it feels like there's a trail of them going further and further off the rails. I think my perfect like Nolan film in terms of like off the rails but still accessible story was like Inception. And then I really liked Interstellar, but it felt like it was a little bit too much, but I loved it. I love the film. And then it felt like for Dunkirk, he was like, okay, I understand I've got a little ridiculous. Let's do like a way simpler story. And then Dunkirk happened. And then we get Tenet, which was like, okay, forget that. I'm actually just going to make the most extreme fucking film I possibly can. And that's what, I don't know. Holy shit.
Well, there are always these Nolanisms. He likes working with time as a part of like the themes and the script. And that was even present in Dunkirk. You know, like clock ticking soundtrack. And I forget the exact word for it, but there's like a type of never-ending rising notes, like in a scale sort of illusion.
It's like there's like a chromatic illusion where if you continue to ascend chromatically, it creates the illusion that it's like an infinity rising.
And then the low parts fade in and the high parts fade out. And, and so like he's always been working with time, and I feel like he's a really competent, even great enough director in terms of doing certain things. Like his love for practical effects is always something to be admired, especially in this generation of movies. But I kind of wish he would go away from his Nolanisms in a way, because Tenet seems like the result of him being like, well, I gotta do all these Nolan things still, but having ran out of ideas or something. Like, it genuinely feels like Tenet was him trying to recapture the same magic as Inception, but forgetting why, or maybe not even fully realizing why Inception was so successful and worked so well. There are key things that I find are missing, especially when comparing Inception to Tenet. One of these is just how easy it is to digest the information, because if you really break it down, Inception isn't like a flawless movie from a logical perspective. It doesn't make perfect sense the whole way through. But it doesn't need to. And everything that is necessary for you to be able to understand what's going on in any given scene is clearly communicated.
Yeah, like on every level of like the dream stuff, I had a pretty good idea of like what was going on, and it really helps that they built the whole movie around incepting. Like, you need to give this guy this idea. Like, okay, sure, I got that.
Well, it's complicated and simple at the same time, and you always have enough in any given scene.
Yeah.
But
the complicated stuff doesn't keep you from understanding the simple stuff.
I felt like the action was, I wasn't able to experience the action in Tenet the way I wanted to because I couldn't understand what was going on. Not why things were happening even, although that was difficult to understand too, but like physically what is happening in any given scene, especially when he's fighting with himself. And I'm just busy thinking like, who is exerting force on who at any given moment?
Yeah, you can't think too hard about it. It's kind of like when you do opposite day at school, and then there's always the one kid that takes it too far, but you're not sure like how far you're supposed to take it. Like if I say like I want to run, do we change like I to you? Like people say like, oh, I want to run. Level 1 opposite day is I don't want to run. Level 2 opposite day is like I don't want to walk, and then level 3 is like you don't want it gets like because you're wondering like, well, how far backwards are we going here? Like is a punch like oh god, I didn't even think. I immediately shut that out of my brain. I was like, this is not something to think about. Yeah.
Here's another gigantic glaring issue that I felt was present in Tenet, and especially like it makes so much sense when you're comparing it to Inception, because again, it's like that's another time plot that's a little complicated. Weird things are happening, lots of action. It's all a vehicle for the action to some extent. In Inception, there was a lot of exposition. It was very exposition heavy, but you always got some sort of tangible thing that you could understand in how they delivered the exposition. So Leo DiCaprio and Ellen Page are talking in the coffee shop outside as he's explaining things. The buildings are warping around and things are blowing up. Then they go and he's explaining like, oh yeah, and here's how this impossible staircase would work, and then it pans down and you see it. You always get this visual representation. He's talking about the how parts of someone's brain will start to realize that someone's incepting them and turn against them, and you get this visual accompaniment because he's walking her through with it like a tutorial in a video game. Tenet, literally just fucking two dudes talking with some cool music in the background as they're explaining exposition, and that's like half the scenes in the first half of the movie. There's a fuck ton of exposition in Tenet, and you never get anything to attach yourself to. It's literally just being, the show don't tell me.
I have to stop you so that people don't think I'm stealing all my ideas from you. My number one complaint about Tenet is that it backwards ruined some of Nolan's films for me. The thing that I noticed in Tenet that was harder than anything else is I realized almost every single line of dialogue uttered in that film is exposition. The characters are almost never talking to each other for the sake of like building on their relationship. It is almost always to explain some asinine concept to the audience, almost every single time. And I started to go back and look at like different scenes in Inception as well. And that you mentioned that scene talking to Elaine Page or whatever, and it's like, fuck, I guess maybe a lot of Nolan dialogues actually like that. Is just talking.
Teaching her, but the core difference is that you as an audience member have something to be able to grasp onto as this is being explained. It's so important that you're able to get some sort of perspective about what they're talking about. Meanwhile, in Tenet, literally the entire plot of the whole fucking movie is like, okay, so this dude wants to do a thing where the universe will implode upon itself or something, like everything will get erased. We don't see any sort of small-scale version of that. They also bring up this idea in the film, like, oh, you can't touch yourself or else you'll cease to exist or some shit. We don't see any small-scale version of that. Like, if they could have some sort of, like, miniature version as they explained it, or just like, in a horror movie,
you're working with forces.
You want to make people afraid of the villain, you show someone get killed off at the very beginning. We needed something like that, because otherwise there is no tension, there's nothing to relate to. I like just didn't give a shit about anything that was happening. It's like, it's worse than the Holocaust.
Or like
you can't just say that. Like,
you give a shit, but literally the only things, like, we're dealing with like extraworldly forces to collapse the universe, but the only thing that seems to kill people in this movie are like bullets, like it's just guns. It's just
bullets are
and then there's
deadly.
The weird reverse radiation bullet thing or whatever. My favorite line in the entire film. Wait, do you have any standout? There is one part that was just so unbelievably absurd.
Probably just the Holocaust line is what stood out to me.
Oh, this is
the worst.
One of the only laugh out loud lines I've ever had in a series film, because I'm not normally that kind of person, was when they start to talk about like the time travel crazy shit. And Pattinson's character was like, oh, I know this. I have a master's in physics.
Yeah.
Wait.
Physics.
And a master's? Wait, I mean, like, you're talking about the most, like, usually this is where,
that.
this is usually where it's
That's
like.
how you get your master's.
Bruce Bannon, or not Bruce, who's the whole, like, usually, like, oh, I have a PhD in theoretical highly right, blah, 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 like, my whole life. And the guy's just like, I have a master's in physics. So let me explain time travel to you. Like, oh, Jesus, I didn't realize that's how far ahead they are in that world. That
It's
this is just
part
like.
of the curriculum now.
Yeah, like, this is year 5. Like, you're not
Where
even.
have you been?
Oh, my God. Yeah, yikes. Also, I felt like such a boomer. Dude, I didn't know at all what was going on in the whole third act. The pincer attack, I guess, was cool, but, like, I was so lost.
It's
like,
just, I think that...
Melina reached over and she's like, who's fighting who right now?
Because they don't give a shit about what's happening and they just want to see the action.
Yeah.
I also think there's a lot of people that enjoyed it because there's this constant game you have to play with movies that are really convoluted and confusing in your own head, thinking, am I smarter than the movie or is the movie smarter than me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a certain amount of people that, especially if they're already huge Nolan fans, will just automatically assume, like, okay, the movie's just way over my head. Do I enjoy the action? Yes or no? That's the only thing I should think about, sort of.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So it's there's a lot in that movie that seems like it would be good on paper. Like if you had it in a book and someone was imagining it and it was explained that way maybe, but communicating that on film, especially like just when it gets to him fighting himself at the beginning, like that's the moment where I was just like, what the fuck am I watching?
Yeah. I thought one of the things I thought to myself was Nolan would make the coolest fucking like 6-part OVAs. If he could have like an HBO special, I think that would be really cool because he obviously has like cool ideas that he could explore, but not in a movie, dude. Not an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes. It's like there's not enough time like to get through all of this shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to. I don't know what he's going to do in the future because now it just seems like he's stuck in a perpetual time loop, which is kind of ironic given the themes of his films. But
yeah, like Michael Bay is like even if he wanted to make a different movie
to an extent too.
What was Tarantino's last? Oh God, I didn't like it. I feel so bad, but I didn't like it. It was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right?
Yeah, that was a very different-ish kind of one, but then turned into at the very end. He was like, well. I'm still Tarantino here.
Yeah, I actually
last, like 20 minutes.
I got the feeling of that movie. I guess similar to the Nolan. I got the feeling like it's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood almost felt like an expanded version of Pulp Fiction, where like it seemed like there were a lot of interesting stories he wanted to tell, and we kind of did the out of order, not necessarily like 100% cohesive storyline of telling them, and like, but I don't know, dude. I just didn't. That was not a movie for me.
I liked
guess.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood mostly because I felt it to be like a refreshing change of pace from like what he's been doing.
Oh sure. Hateful Eight.
I feel
and
like
Django.
he's kind of. Well, yeah, I'm not. I really enjoyed the Hateful Eight. I wasn't a big fan of Django, and I wasn't a huge fan of Inglourious Bastards. I liked
oh my
half of
God,
that movie.
you just like fucking 180 on all of my opinions. Interesting. Okay, I really liked Django.
Well,
I loved Inglourious Bastards. I wasn't a big fan of Hateful Eight. I love Django too. Okay.
Okay.
Wait, what do you like about Tarantino films? Or if you like a Tarantino film, what's the aspect of it that you like? Wait, did you like Kill Bill?
I love Kill Bill. It's one of my favorite movies.
Okay, cool. All right. What aspect of Tarantino films do you like or not like? Yeah.
If I'm going to talk about why I love Kill Bill out of all of his films, I feel like the film is very, what's the word? I guess like symphonic in a way. He's really talented at like plucking out pre-existing songs, whether they are from, musicians like just rock musicians that you'd hear on the radio, or composers from other films. He loves to grab like Ennio Morricone scores from pre-existing films that had already used those scores and then repurpose them. And he's really great at doing that. And it seems like that's the way he writes his scripts, in a way that like he's like listening to these songs on his headphones and being like, this would be a great visual accompaniment to these emotions in this song. And Kill Bill, I feel like, is like his best film for that. And I don't know, my favorite of his period, with Pulp Fiction being in second place probably.
Sure.
And then I don't know, out of his other films, what's really interesting about Quentin Tarantino as a director is like I've had this discussion with quite a few people before, and it seems like every single person has a different Quentin Tarantino movie where they feel like it's him trying too hard to be himself. Because I
Gotcha.
feel that way for him in Django and half of Inglourious Bastards. And then my podcast co-hosts were like really not a big fan of Death Proof, and they found it to be, they were using my same criticisms against the ones I didn't like, basically against the other movie, but I just completely disagreed and saw it completely differently. Sure. And I think also, I guess what adds to that is because so much of what he does is like homage to other genres. So in a film like Death Proof, you can't really criticize certain aspects of it. Like you can't be like, oh yeah, Quentin Tarantino's cameo was like really poorly acted in that one. It's like, yeah, it was, but it's also trying to be a grindhouse 70s exploitation film, right? So like no matter which film he's doing, he's always tackling some sort of like pre-existing genre that is going to have its own flaws, and if he's going to recreate that faithfully, then his film is going to have those same flaws, right?
Sure.
So it's really all dependent on like what tone appeals to you more than anything, which I feel is a lot of people's movie taste is tone, honestly.
Sure. Okay. 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 I completely hijacked this. Wait, what did you originally come here to talk about? Oh wait.
Well, I don't know. What?
I have one more question on something that you said.
Sure. Yeah.
I've heard strong opinions on this one way or another. Do you believe that it's appropriate that a movie ever utilizes music external to itself? Or do you think that you necessarily sacrifice like emotional control? So somebody might say, for instance, you should never use a song that's like already written outside of a movie because somebody might have an emotion attached to that you don't have control over, and now you're like giving up the ability to communicate effectively with the audience.
I would never be so strong as to say that a movie is worsened because it uses films that exist outside of its own universe. However, I do have a strong appreciation for films that successfully convey their emotions without doing that. My favorite director is an Austrian director, Michael Haneke, however you want to pronounce it. And every single one of his films, unless I'm mistaken, there might be some exception, but I'm pretty sure every single one of his films, if there's music in it, it exists within the universe, even if it's happening at a different point in time, even if he has to take from a character playing a song or it being on the radio at another point reasonably within the universe, it's still there. And he feels very strongly about it and says that, it's basically like cheating. And to some extent, I agree with him on that. But I would also say that you could apply that logic to something like lighting. You can convey a mood and emotion with lighting. You can convey a mood and emotion with the framing, how you frame certain shots, how much space is there above the actor's head. So to say that it only applies with music would be dishonest. However, I do agree that music is one of the most manipulative ways you can convey an emotion that isn't in the film otherwise.
Gotcha. Okay, wait. I think I meant this question a little differently. Are you talking about, have you ever heard the term diegetic versus non-diegetic music?
I've heard it, but you'll have to...
Okay, yeah, no, it's fine, yeah. So diegetic means that, like, when you hear the song, it's
what
like...
we're talking about.
Yeah, oh, yeah, sorry, okay. So what I was more specifically referring to is, how do you feel about people using songs that aren't original to the movie? So, for instance, let's say that a romantic scene comes on and I play a song from, like, Mariah Carey or some shit. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm referring to specifically.
Are you sure? Oh, okay. I've heard that term before, but I thought it was... I've only ever heard it in context to what I was talking about. But
yeah, no. What you were talking about is diegetic versus non-diegetic music. Yeah, I'm not asking about that. I'm just curious what you think about like using like a popular pop song or something as part of a movie. Like, do you think that you're sacrificing because people might have attachments to the song or something? Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino definitely does it well, but I will agree that there is a risk of someone already having emotions associated with a song, and therefore that might influence how they feel about that song in that given moment. But I mean, the way Quentin Tarantino does it, it's really great. I'll watch Kill Bill more times than I'll watch the Man with No Name trilogy anyway, despite the original score from Ennio Morricone being in that film.
Yeah, just curious.
But yeah, it's I've been bothered by it before. I think one of the most notable examples of me being really bothered by it was in the film Kick-Ass, where they just took John Murphy's scores from 2 other films.
Oh,
And even though he was, yeah, like
I'm pretty sure that
even
song's
though
been
he
used in
was
like 5 different
credited
films.
as it was the Sunshine score,
It's
which
been
was
like
used a billion times in a
it's
billion
called like
other things.
Adagio in D minor or some shit like that. Yeah, it's literally
used
a song.
in like fucking perfume commercials and shit.
Yeah, and I think 28 Days
and
Later.
then
or something.
also some rendition of the 28 Days Later theme was also in there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, because like I had already associated that song with another movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie wasn't even that long ago, right? When Quentin Tarantino takes a song from another movie, it's like, I don't know, 30 years before.
Sure, yeah.
At least.
And isn't just like no offense, but like a generic
from like 4 years before. What were you saying? Sorry.
And it's not even like a memorable song. It's like a generic kind of like hype orchestral thing. It's not even like a super memorable, I guess, like piece.
In a way, there are parts. Yeah, depending on your experience watching those other films, I guess. But yeah, that Kick-Ass one was just really. It really bothered me, and I didn't like the movie much anyway. I was just like, it's not that entertaining to me. Like, haha, little girl swearing. Like 4chan wanted to fuck her when the movie was out. It was just the next like 14-year-old with a pink wig or whatever. That
I was about to say it takes the pressure off the Lazy Town girl or whatever. I guess But
yeah, exactly. That's literally what was happening. I was like, oh, you have a very specific taste, don't you? Yeah, there's a movie. A really great documentary, very, very entertaining, that you should watch, called Tickled, if you haven't seen it already. Don't spoil yourself. There's twists and turns, but it's a really awesome documentary by a New Zealand journalist known as David Ferrier. And in that film, pretty much the entire soundtrack is literally just from Shane Carruth's Upstream Color. And what wound up happening was, I watched the movie, I recognized the soundtrack, but I wasn't that upset by it because it was a song, were used in a narrative and then later used in a documentary. Okay. So these two worlds, the Upstream Color world still exists in the documentary world because that's real life, I guess. Maybe that's why it didn't bother me as much. Maybe it didn't bother me as much because they're completely different genres. But yeah, essentially he just used Shane Carruth's soundtrack as temp music, and then Shane Carruth watched the cut and was like, you can just use it. So he wound up keeping it. So
all right, cool. Okay, I'm out of questions for you. Okay.
Sure.
What's up?
I was going to ask you, I've heard of something called composition contest or something that you do.
Oh, we listen to your shit. Wait, do you sing and everything? Do you do all the instruments in your album?
Oh, did you listen to my album?
Not your album, but there was one song that you did. The music video I did was really cute. Where I think every time you played like a chord on the piano, it like overlaid it. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, that was from that album.
Yeah, we listened to either one or two songs of it, but like, it was cool.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
you so much.
Yeah, but I just every now and then I do something called a composition challenge. So I'll like play like a really basic thing on the piano, and then after that I throw it to my audience and I say, make a song out of this, and then they kind of have to stay somewhat faithful to the structure or chord progression or whatever, and then they make their own song based off of it, and then I judge it all after like a month or whatever, and yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
I was just, and it's done by like judges?
Well, so I judge it. So I am a literal fascist when it comes to my competition. So technically, I have the final word. However, there's two other judges that I hit up. Do you know who Lily Pichu is?
I've heard of that name.
Gotcha. She does like
mostly from your stream.
Sure. She does like piano stuff, and she's got like a really good ear for music stuff. So I'll bring on her to judge music, and then there's another girl, a singer slash piano player called Natsumi. They're both friends, and I guess all three of us are friends. So and then I'll bring her on as well to judge. So yeah, I'll have like a trio of judges. But I also pull in other people. There are other people that are ever interested in coming and judging pieces. If they ever want to. So.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Yeah, I was curious about that. Because last time I talked to you, it was on your podcast, and I remember at the very end of it, there was mention about music, and you said something along the lines of, I think you went to like school for composition or something.
Yeah.
And that you wished you had heard of the topic of music beforehand in the podcast because we ran out of time and you were going to talk about music shit or something. I don't know if you had like any If you want to like
fuck.
have
Wait,
a
which
little fight
pod?
over it or
What
something.
were we fight?
It was on
fighting.
DT. I don't know. You didn't bring up anything specific. So.
Yeah, we were always kind of aimless on that podcast. I don't remember specifically. Does anybody remember what we were talking about that I wanted to bring up?
No, I don't think that there was anything specific being brought up. I think it was just like I plugged my music at the end.
Oh, and maybe I
like,
just had no idea.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how do you feel about your? I guess like is this your first like full album that you've done, or?
It's my first full album. Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Good in ways. Yeah. I mean, like I'm my own toughest critic. And there's a bunch that I can see can be improved, even though I just released it, obviously. But I think that I don't know, for doing something pretty much by myself with like no producer or industry people or anything, I think it turned out really good. And I'm, despite it not being perfect, I'm proud of it, and I'm excited to do more, and hopefully, I don't know, hopefully in the future I can work with some industry people or something. Like, I don't know, maybe this album can be some way of
Like a stepping
saying
stone.
like, hey, I'm serious, sort of thing. And perhaps some magic wand will be waved and then someone will help me with the things that I do in my life, but you never know.
What is your what's kind of like a dream goal, I guess? Like what like for your end goal for like I say end goal, but like what would be the coolest thing that could happen like musically? Like do you want to play with a certain musician? Do you want to record a certain type of album?
I want so like I listen to a lot of like indie stuff. My favorite band is Bright Eyes, and I've seen them like transform over the years.
They come from my I think they come from my home city, Omaha.
Yeah, Omaha.
Yeah.
And the I don't know. It's like part of me would be like, oh yeah, I want to work with Mike Mogus, the producer for the Bright Eyes albums. But really, I don't know. I think what I want most is just something that sounds tight and professional and well produced without sounding overproduced, while still retaining complete creative control over what happens, especially composition wise, and while still retaining rights to my music. And I don't know if that's like asking for a lot. I don't know if how realistic that is. And
yeah, I think it's super
like
ultra realistic. One of the cool things about like the route, are you familiar with like Filthy Frank and Joji, right?
Yeah.
One of the cool things about building like an audience first is that you don't have to worry about a lot of the hiccups that a lot of the early like because most people when they go to record music are broke as fuck. They have access to no money. They're super fucked. But like I guess we're in a lucky position that we can like fund those kinds of projects off the backs of our other successful ventures.
Exactly.
So you probably have the money. You could rent studio time. I don't know if you rented a studio to do this or if you recorded at home.
I did for the most recent project. It was literally like the most expensive thing I've ever done in my entire life.
Yeah, geez. Have you said publicly how much you invested in the recording of the whole album, like start to finish?
I don't, maybe, probably, but I think I think I was doing some rough estimates, and this would have been, I don't know, 6 months ago where I was thinking about this, and including buying a lot of expensive instruments, I've spent probably, I think safely like $50,000 or $60,000.
Sure, jeez.
Which is just like insane, ridiculous. I've never spent that much on anything, ever. Right, my car is like $2,000.
Yeah, for sure.
But the reason why I was able to do it is because I recorded it over the course of like 4 years, though. So it's not like I had $60,000 in the bank and was just like, oh, yeah, I'll write a check. It was literally just like okay, well, if I do 3 or 4 sessions a month, and each of those are like $150 sessions for 10 hours. Yeah,
that's cool.
So it was very expensive, but I guess like the goal for me isn't necessarily to like make a financial return off of it, and if it was, I'd probably be promoting it very differently. I'd probably be doing a few different things, I guess.
For sure.
But I don't know. I've always just felt that it's like kind of like a therapy sort of thing, like a expression
When you were getting towards the end of like, or go ahead, you wouldn't what?
I wouldn't be making music in a way where it's like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do to like create a hit and like get famous sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like that's not what music is for me.
So in terms of like treating, so music is very similar to me in that it just like, or maybe it's not very similar, but like I like music because it's a really easy way to express yourself and it's very unique and you can kind of do it on your own and it's like always there, something you can do. It's like, it's a really, really fun thing for me. Do you feel like for the whole process from start to finish of conceiving of a song, writing it, playing it, recording it, did you have fun the entire time? Did you start to feel like really burnt out towards the end? Were there like, were things unexpectedly frustrating for you where you were like, man, I thought this would be so cool to do, but I fucking hate like mixing. It just like drives me crazy. Like, did you run into anything like that? Like, how did you feel about the whole process?
In the tail end of the process, the mixing and mastering stuff was just like absolutely infuriating. Mostly just because like, I don't know, like I felt like so I do a lot of video editing and I felt like a lot of this, like, man, if I went to school for like audio engineering, I could just be doing this myself. And a lot of it was like literally just me telling the audio engineer, like, move this up by like 2 decibels, move this down, like do this, blah, 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 blah. And especially not having a producer, you know, me literally just being the sole producer on the album, I had complete full creative control over it, despite me not really having a background in mixing or mastering or anything like that. So I was, you know, figuring things out as I was going along. And then I guess the most frustrating aspect of creating the album for me was that like the just the amount of time that I had to spend waiting when I was already, my audience was already anticipating this project for a long time. And I, you know, if I book only a couple days of studio time at a time, and I think, okay, I can get this stuff done, and I don't have to worry about this other stuff within this amount of time. I think it'll be done within that amount of scheduled time, and then it isn't done within that amount of scheduled time. It's like, okay, well, I don't really have a deadline. That's fine. The only deadline is just in my own head that I'm setting for myself. But after I find out that I need more studio time to book that time, the studios are already booked up for the next 3 weeks to a month. Sure. So there's this month-long gap of like just time waiting in between to book a couple more sessions and then spend another month and then book, you know, a couple more sessions. And so that part was really incredibly frustrating to me. Is just like, ah, fuck, like, you know, I didn't want to sacrifice what I wanted the album to be and certain parts of it that, you know, when you listen to it so many times, sometimes you get used to how things sound in a way. And it surprisingly, like a surprising amount, depending on the track especially, you know, I would have already listened to the song like 100 times in different forms at least, and then still find tiny little things that are like wrong with it, but perhaps in ways that the average viewer wouldn't pick up, but because I notice those things and I want to be able to listen to the songs multiple times, they would bother me enough to listen to them. So I just had to get rid of them. And some of them, you know, especially once COVID hit and I was still working on the album. And so like all of what was happening at that point was long distance. And so I would have to wait for some files to get to me, listen to it on my end, be like, hey, can you tweak this or fix this or find out what that noise is? And when a song has like, I don't know, like 30 different music tracks, instrument tracks going on at once, and there's like, you hear in the right channel, there's something that sounds like someone snapped their finger or something, and you don't know what it is because nobody snapped their finger. So it's either an instrument, it's either like I hit my guitar weird, or maybe I hit the mic as I was like recording it. And so I have to like ask the audio engineer long distance, like, can you find out what this song is? And sometimes they have no fucking clue, and they just don't have the ear for like some of this shit. Sure. And so, yeah.
It's also got to be hard, okay, like, when you've heard something, when it comes to, like, making a song, when you've listened to the same thing, like, 5,000 fucking times, you can start to wonder, like, I don't even know what I'm listening to anymore. Am I hearing the same thing? I know, right? Or, yeah.
Yeah. It's a difficult part of the process. So when I made my demo CD, like, 10 years ago, which was literally just 4 tracks, that was one where it was obviously lower production value, made for much cheaper, and doesn't sound as good as the newest project. But that was one where I was just able to record each track, vocals, whatever instruments, do all that, and then the rest of the process was essentially taken care of for me. I would love to have that to an extent. I would love to be able to write and perform and have say on what's happening and work with people and communicate my ideas effectively in ways that they understand it and they know what I want to go for and what kind of sound I want. And I would love to have that, but it's like, I don't know. I don't live in LA, you know, I live in Canada, right?
Yeah.
So not as many connections, not as many resources. The population of my entire country is less than that of California, spread out over the second largest landmass, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just wishful thinking of like potential things in the future of like, hey, maybe I'll run into some magical person that will help my aspirations in that way. You never know, but
yeah, damn.
Otherwise, you just got to keep doing shit for yourself, which is what I've been doing for a while. So,
what do you are you taking like a pretty big break from music related stuff now to like kind of catch your breath, or do you think are you already like working on your next project? Or
well, it's like I haven't even really started what could be a break yet because I'm still trying. You know that frustrating part I was talking about of like the waiting and getting files and waiting and blah blah blah. I'm still in that because I'm trying to get like the radio edits and the vinyl master so I can get those things published.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I've done the digital release already. I'd like to get some stuff on the radio, which should be pretty easy because we have weird laws in Canada that says that a certain amount of shit that plays on the radio has to be Canadian content. So
awesome. You're like you got like exactly. Canadian affirmative action. Hell yeah.
Exactly. So it won't be as much of an issue trying to get on the radio, I don't think. You know, just to have it as a thing that happened, I guess, or maybe bring it to new people that wouldn't have heard it otherwise or something, or feel like a little bit legitimized in some way, because there's always this like new versus old media sort of thing.
Yeah, it's really funny because you see like us people in new media like really obsess about having anything to do with old media. Like even to me still like being on TV or the radio sounds like the coolest thing in the world. Yeah, but then for a lot of the people in old media, they're like, God, I wish we could just break into new media because this shit is fucking dying. So there's like this back and forth. It's very funny, how we treat each other.
Yeah. But it's like we also kind of grew up with the old media stuff, so it's already ingrained in us, whereas like Zoomers might not feel the same way.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas like they don't give a shit.
Yeah, and the numbers and everything are so much different too. Like if I think about it, like people in my home city are on the radio, and like these people are making 60, 70, 80,000 a year maybe as these broadcasters. They're broadcasting to like hundreds of thousands of people. But if you're like a streamer and you've got like 5,000 people listening to you live, you're like making fucking tons of money. And it's like the scope and the size, or like in the Omaha broadcasting area, like that radio tower is reaching over 1 million people. But if you're on YouTube and you've got like 1 million subscribers, you can be some shit or random radio station in Omaha, or you can be like 1 million subber YouTube. It's like a way bigger reach. It's interesting how the numbers are like so different, like the value of like each individual listener and everything between the two platforms.
Yeah, we're reaching the point where the internet will eventually have more of a sway on elections than old media.
If it doesn't already. I think it's like 65% of people say they get more news from like Facebook and shit.
Yeah, how many? Yeah. Facebook's a weird one, though. I guess I have to consider that new media.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I feel so bad. I remember the day my mom told me she stopped listening to Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck. I was so happy. I was like, oh my God. She's like, yeah, I just don't find them trustworthy anymore. And I thought she'd like, I don't know what she started listening to. She was like, oh, awesome. But then I found out that she replaced that with like all the Facebook groups and memes. And I'm like, oh my God, like go back to Rush Limbaugh. Like this is horrible. Holy shit.
I found the most trustworthy meme page.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
They are fact-checked rigorously.
Yeah, by all the people in those communities.
They have a code of ethics listed in their description. Yeah, I spent the entire day assembling like a tool cabinet and then cleaning out a closet and getting all my tools in that. Because my parents got me a tool cabinet for Christmas.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
It's like, well, we're not going to be seeing each other this year, so
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
not cool. Never mind. I'm sorry. Or is it personal, or is it just COVID related?
COVID.
Oh, okay.
Which is funny because like our numbers are like nothing like the United States, but
Calm down. Hey, they're still pretty bad, all right? Slow down.
what's still pretty bad? What?
Your numbers are pretty bad, I think. They're not as bad as the U.S. is, okay? But we are the best in the world
yeah.
at dying right now, okay? So calm down, okay?
Yeah.
Don't feel too proud of yourselves, all right?
Okay, I won't.
Okay.
It's it's not great. That's true.
What did you think about?
I feel like
Or go ahead.
I just wish we would have done some New Zealand type shit. Just this pretend lockdown, half-ass measured. Like, no shit, it doesn't work because you didn't do it right.
Oh yeah, and doing it half-assed like fucks
Yeah,
the economy
just-
and hurts all the businesses, and you don't even like
Yeah,
get rid
you-
of the disease. So you actually
The worst of both worlds.
basically, yeah.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna just throw random movie shit at you. Fuck. I feel like, is this really annoying? Does every single
Perfect.
person you talk to do this?
No, I like talking about movies.
Okay, gotcha.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have a movie review channel.
True. Okay. What did you think about The Lighthouse?
Loved it.
You loved
Favorite
it.
movie of 2019.
Damn. Oh, okay. So that was the one you liked more than Parasite?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
absolutely loved it.
I'm really glad that I saw it. I will say that. I definitely felt like the movie was a little too artsy for me, or maybe a lot too artsy
Okay.
for me. But the performances
Okay.
by the two leads was so mind-numbingly fucking
Yeah.
good. Oh my god. Wow.
I Willem Dafoe snub at the Oscars. I feel so upset about it.
Damn.
Like I get it, they don't like horror movies, but like come the fuck on.
Is it even
like you've nominated Willem Dafoe for other shit too?
I feel like it maybe just because of how I love horror movies. I watched every classic horror movie ever, but it feels a little degrading to call The Lighthouse a horror movie. I don't know if I would.
It's in the horror genre.
Yeah, it is, but I guess when I think of horror movie, I can't think. It almost feels like this sounds so bad to say. I don't mean it like, but like science fiction doesn't normally have like super ultra serious movies. Although there are like good movies in the science fiction, but the horror genre feels similar. Where like it feels like calling like The Lighthouse just like, oh, it's a horror movie, feels a little bit like like it is, but
Yeah, I mean, okay. So in the last 5 years, we've been seeing a big change in what horror movies are, and you'll notice that like every single one of the breakout, both critically and commercially well received horror movies of the past like 5 years are all like A24 basically, where there's a lot of new and interesting voices coming to the scene. And A24 is just like, yeah, we'll give you money, and we're not going to control what you do for the most part. And it's like, oh shit.
Yeah,
and then all of a
Hereditary
sudden,
and
people are
Midsommar.
figuring out that Hereditary, The Witch, Lighthouse, it Comes at Night, It Follows, list goes on. A lot of really great new voices in horror right now, and every single one of those films. It's very difficult to call any of them like true horror if you're a fan of horror from 80s or 90s or
2000s
slasher or like any one of those. Like horror was really confined to being a pretty standard genre type in the same way that like zombie is a genre. There's only a certain amount of ways a zombie film is going to go for the most part, aside from some exceptions. And that's what it felt like horror as a genre was to some degree, unless you started adding other words to it, like science fiction horror, horror thriller, slasher
drama,
horror, whatever, or fantasy horror. So I don't know. I feel like I'm really happy with the horror genre in the past 5 years. It's still not my favorite genre, and still mostly bad movies compared to good movies. But like, there's a lot of really great things coming out, and a lot of impressive, new, interesting voices. What do you think of? You mentioned Hereditary. Did you watch Midsommar?
I did.
Yeah. What do you think?
Oof. Did you watch the main movie, or did you watch the director or the director's cut?
I watched the theatrical cut in theaters, and then I watched the director's cut after, and I found that I enjoyed the director's cut a lot more. And I'm trying to. I feel like part of it is definitely because it flows better. Obviously the movie was written to be that way.
Sure.
But another part of it was because on my second watch, I had much more realistic expectations for what the movie was and what it was trying to be. Whereas the first time I went into Midsommar, the worst thing to do going into that movie is to expect another Hereditary, because it's not. It has very different goals.
I think
so that might have been why I didn't enjoy it as much the first time I saw it.
Gotcha. When I watched so I watched the director's cut first, and
Oh, really?
yeah,
Wow.
The one thing that I didn't like as much about the director's cut is I liked in the original, unless I'm misremembering, I feel like in the original, I think that it was kept a little bit ambiguous for as to how we were supposed to feel about like the other culture and their traditions or whatever. Where like you can kind of tell like it's a horror movie, it's probably getting ended up horribly. But like the scene that comes to mind is like the old people jumping off the rocks. It seems like, well, this is pretty bad, but they give an explanation for it. You know, maybe the acceptance of death isn't the worst thing, blah blah blah. Like, you know, like that type of like ambiguous stuff that you don't know if it's evil, it kind of is, kind of isn't, is interesting to me. I guess like narratively. I think this was a scene that was only in the director's cut. The one where they were gonna have like they were gonna like drown the kid. That was a little bit much for me. I'm like, okay, like
that was a director's cut.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, I get it. They're big bad evil people. Like we're kind of like, yeah. Mm-hmm. But
okay, I don't know if I agree that it was as ambiguous though.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sure.
Because I don't feel, I don't know. The Ari Aster is a weird director in the sense that he makes really, really great, well-shot films that are original, but at the same time, if you've seen the other movies he's inspired by, which, to his credit, he is very vocally honest about which other films he's inspired by. If you've seen the other ones, then you'll always have those on your mind. So with Midsummer, it was like The Wicker Man and maybe one other thing that I don't remember. But like,
sure,
if you've seen the original Wicker Man movie, it's like there's so many of the same beats to the point where like literally like there, without spoiling it, but people who have seen both movies, like there are very specific ways you can describe the ending that are just like so identical about this, and just like, and then with
this is the one that was remade with like
Nick
Cage, right?
That was the remake of The Wicker Man.
The remake of
the really bad one.
Yeah, sure. But even in that movie, there's like a lot of
plot,
similar.
Yeah.
With
and
Hereditary,
then with Hereditary, yeah, he was basically just doing like a spiritual remake of Don't Look Now and Rosemary's Baby. And although, you know, Ari Aster makes these films where it's like, I like his movies better than the things that he's spiritually remaking, with the exception of Rosemary's Baby, because I like that one a lot more. But yeah, he's it's just difficult to separate those things. And so when I realized what was happening in Midsummer, watching the theatrical version, and that it was just going to be like, okay, this is just The Wicker Man. Maybe perhaps that removed some of the ambiguity from the I guess
where the story was going. Yeah.
Cultural sort of thing. And also, I guess, like, I don't know, it's very clearly a horror movie. The opening of the film is depressing as fuck.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you don't have that opening scene in a film that's not sinister throughout the rest of, it's not going to be like, oh, I'm learning about a different culture for the rest of
the
you're not going to
I try not to go in with like super genre expectations, so I'm not like, when I try to watch something that I try to do when I'm watching a movie is I try to be very not meta. Like I know that like when some people watch movies are constantly trying to like, oh, like it's gonna do this or that. I try to just like sit back and watch it and enjoy it for what it is. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like if we're being totally honest, I don't think that the movie's gonna end as like, oh, they were just doing a documentary on another culture and everybody's cool. Like, yeah, that's pretty obvious, sure.
Yeah, and even I don't know, even if you ignore, I guess, the expectations of genres and like what other pieces of media that people have seen, I don't know, part of filmmaking is playing on people's expectations,
for sure,
right? In the same part that like creating music is. You know, I think that all art, like, expectations are a part of it. Otherwise, there would be no, I guess, formula to anything that's happening.
Yeah,
artistically. Yeah, Midsummer, I did really enjoy the director's cut a lot more than I thought I was going to, because I was really lukewarm on the theatrical one. But again, it might just be because it was my second time watching it, and now I knew what to expect about it. Because I was able to enjoy it more as like this, like, character piece, I guess.
Gotcha.
Whereas like my biggest criticism with my experience watching the theatrical cut was like, I wasn't really scared by it, you know? It's like, is this a horror movie? Like, I loved the opening scene, but the rest of it, I was just like, none of this is scary. None of this is like a horror movie to me. But then, reading some people's interpretations about, I guess like what it's thematically going for, in terms of like, the main character breaking away from the toxic people in her life, and watching it as that kind of film, and how it's like less of a horror movie and more of like a relationship movie. I connected with it so much more. And also, those were the parts that I enjoyed from the theatrical cut the most, and we got like more of that. We got more of their relationship.
Yeah, we did.
And that's And so with me feeling really lukewarm on the horror parts, but really loving the character parts, and I got more of that in the director's cut, then
Yeah, that was another thing too. Whereas in the main, I think in the main film, the boyfriend seemed like kind of an asshole, but like not too bad. But I think in the director's cut, you saw a lot more, I think, of the negative sides of the boyfriend, and more of the relationship in general. I think there were a lot more added scenes that added that fleshed out the relationship a bit more too.
Yeah, it was still there, but you're right, but much more fleshed out and much more just well developed in general. It's like, I can see why it was written that way and why he wanted it to present it that way. Makes perfect sense.
Do you have any strong feelings about the Star Wars movies, or do you not give a fuck about Star Wars?
I have my strong feeling about the Star Wars movie is how strongly I don't give a fuck about Star Wars.
Gotcha.
To the point where, like, if people bring up the movie in my Patreon hangouts, I'm like, please, let's talk about something else. I cannot stand talking about Star Wars. And it's not because I hate it and think it's the worst thing ever made, that I just hate the conversation. And I hate that people talk about it. I hate that it's a part of our culture. I think that there are more important things to enjoy, in my opinion, I guess. Star Wars just seems like such a waste of time out of everything that could potentially be discussed.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Or otherwise.
One of the to begin a small discussion on Star Wars, I guess one of the things that always like disappoints me on it, that's actually so weird, and I didn't even notice till somebody pointed it out. It might have even been a Red Letter Media interview, or one of the. I didn't realize how fucking empty and hollow and nothing the entire Star Wars universe was, at least in the main movies. I realized that going back, because I compared it to I don't know how you feel about reading books or movies in terms of Harry Potter, but I love the Harry Potter world. Even if I thought that like the characters and the stories was kind of like, I love that world so much. Like,
and do you love it from the books or from the movies, or do you
from either one? Obviously I grew up reading the books and I really love the books. I thought the movies did a decent job for the most part, but like if I could like pay like a lot of money to see like a rated R Star Wars movie, I'd be like, sounds interesting. But if I could pay a lot of money to see like a rated R Harry Potter movie, like just like a very mature, very dark Harry, that would be so fucking like, cool. I would love that. You follow
it to the logical conclusion. If you have a universe where you can, Hermione turns into a fucking cat, there's probably people doing really dirty things in that
Okay, hold on. When I say rated R, I don't necessarily mean, okay, listen, Mr. Furry, okay, that wasn't where I was going, okay? I didn't
but you gotta follow it to the logical conclusion.
Sure, I didn't necessarily mean...
If you can turn into another character...
Yeah, there's a lot... Well, now we're talking... Wait, did you ever see The Boys?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking season 2 Homelander and the fucking mom character or whatever.
Oh, that was fucking awesome.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. Yeah, I didn't necessarily mean that way, but I mean like a darker, more mature story in like the Harry Potter world seems like it would be so cool. But in Star Wars, I totally just don't care about any of the world of that. The Jedi and the Empire, I don't, like, none of these things matter. Yeah. But,
I feel that same way, but I also do not give a shit about Harry Potter.
Wow, fuck you.
But I'm not saying Harry Potter is terrible, and I am less irritated by the conversation of Harry Potter than I am about Star Wars.
Sure.
But mostly because I just like, I've seen the Harry Potter films probably 3 times each, and I can't remember a single fucking thing about any of them.
Why the fuck did you watch them so much?
Because I grew up. It was my generation, right? It was the thing that you watch. And then I had a little cousin, and I babysat her, and she wanted to watch Harry Potter. I just wound up watching these Harry Potter movies, and just like, I guess these are Harry Potter movies. And I always find it, like, I don't know. It was fine. There's like Quidditch and stuff, like, but there was always these magical ways that characters would get out of any given situation. Like, oh, this is a magic trick that exists now.
This is always going to be the whole Deus Ex Machina shit of
when
fucking
you have that,
any magical thing.
Script. However, I will mention that since playing the game Mass Effect, I have discovered what it must be like to be a Star Wars fan. Because I went through the codex on that game, and I was like, man, I actually care about the universe, and I'm actually interested in how things work in this universe, which is like not a very rare or not a very common thing for me for like science fiction, large, expansive sort of franchisey kind of things. And so it's like, man, I totally get it why someone would just like be so obsessed with Star Wars, read all the books, all the spin-off series and stuff. But I would be that way with Mass Effect. I might not, view every single bit of Mass Effect material, but I totally went through all of the little information packets in the in the codex menu, and I love that the voice reads it to you as well.
Sure.
I thought that was awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, I was super invested in that universe, and that made me even more disappointed when the third game came out. But
Oh, damn. I think they're working on a remake of it all, I think.
Yep, they're remastering the whole thing, which is great that they said it now, because I was just itching to play through that trilogy again for stream or something. So now I'll patiently wait. I made the mistake with No More Heroes 1 and 2. I played those recently, and then it got announced like, oh, we're doing it for the Switch now, and that got announced like a month ago. I was like, oh, fuck, I just played those. Whatever.
Let's see. I watched In Bruges. Is that my pronunciation correct? Oh yeah, I watched that last night. I really liked that movie. That was super good.
Did you also see 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri? That's the same director.
I did. This has been a long time ago. I did. I really liked that movie as well. I really liked that movie. Was Woody Harrelson the officer guy in that?
Yes.
Yeah. I really liked that movie. That movie was really well done. I liked that movie a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, both of those movies are really great. I feel like for whatever reason, like I've seen them both at least a couple times, but I feel like 3 Billboards resonates with me a bit more. Like I remember more of my experience with that movie than In Bruges. I like In Bruges for sure. It's fun. But I feel like I got more out of 3 Billboards narratively, I guess. There were people that were like, there's some people that really don't like that movie, and it's this weird, like, they make fun of me for liking it, and they point out things like, there was a CG deer, but there wasn't a CG deer. It was just like kind of poorly green screen, but it was a real deer. And it's just like one shot.
Oh, sure.
But
yeah.
It's just like it doesn't blend in with the environment right, but it's not CG.
Yeah. One thing I was going to fight with you a little bit earlier was you mentioned the thing about Christopher Nolan doing like practical effects. One thing that drives me fucking crazy, like I think that practical effects are cool and I think they're respectable and it's awesome you could do them, but like I don't like the idea of like circle jerking like practical effects for the sake of like, oh look, they're practical. It's like, okay, but like,
I mean, if it's done well,
right, I can respect
Christopher Nolan
that.
does do it well.
Definitely, for sure. And there is a respect for doing things like the old-fashioned way, like when you watch like Braveheart or The Patriot or whatever, like, or like knowing that there's like actually hundreds of people out there and not like 2 actors with a million green screen or CGI people, like that is cool, yeah. But sometimes it's a little bit like, oh my god, he doesn't use any, or like when Tarantino, he only shoots on fucking like 70 millimeter or whatever, no digital film.
Yeah,
it's like, okay.
There is this puritism that comes with it as well that I don't give a shit about. Like, whatever, shoot it on digital, shoot it on film. Sure, there's a little bit of a difference, but like it really doesn't matter. And digital's cheaper, and it looks great. There's nothing wrong with digital. I understand, Quentin, but you're a dying breed, Grandpa. You gotta get with the times. When he tried to do his tour with the Hateful Eight, like, oh, we're gonna play this in like 80 millimeter or something, and then like there was article after article of like, just like, oh, the only theaters that still have these projectors don't have the staff trained to use them.
Nice.
And shit like that. There was one theater in Vancouver, where I live, and that had the projector to be able to play it. And it was such a small screen that I was just like, why am I watching it like this? And like, I didn't get whatever effect he clearly wanted from this anyway. Like, it's just not a great theater for it. So Sorry,
Is there
Clinton.
when you work with that film, when he goes to do editing, are they actually like splicing together film rolls and shit? Are they actually like watching film and like putting it together that way, or is there like another process for doing?
You know what? I don't know, but you can like digital editing has existed with films for quite a while.
Sure.
So there's clearly, you digitally master the film. You master the actual film into a digital file and then edit it. And then even when film projectors were still a common thing in theaters in, let's say, the late 90s, and most movies were being edited digitally, it would basically just be like reprinting the digital edit back on film, but you'd still get the same like film look. If I'm not mistaken, I might be completely wrong.
Gotcha.
I might be completely fucking wrong on this, but I assume that's how it's done.
Yeah.
Like I've seen, computer generated effects have existed during film.
True. Yeah. True. Yeah. Somebody in chat
So
said that
you'd have to assume
you
that-
edit on scanned film rolls or something. Like, okay, yeah, sure. There's probably ways to use computers to make that. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's a whole other process. But it's like, I don't know. I kind of like the fact that it's easier now to make a movie than ever before. That, Steven Soderbergh films a movie with like an iPhone 4 and it's just like, oh, it's an artistic choice.
Yeah, the idea that it's accessible. It's so strange how like artistically we've gotten like more commercialized than ever before in the history of all of fucking shit, but then it's also like more accessible than ever before in the history of like everything. So yeah. It reminds me of like the golden age of everybody always says the golden age, but like back in the wait, or if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I am
About
29 years old.
20. Okay, cool. I'm 31. So like back in like the
Yeah.
early days of the internet, like everything was super experimental. Like on the early days of YouTube, like the weird like skits and
Yeah.
films and the first memes, they weren't even called memes back then.
Yeah, I was
Like,
there.
Yeah, like all of the old stuff was so experimental and new and everybody was trying everything. Like it was very interesting. It's kind of sad how even though everything is super accessible, like everything is like ultra formulaic now. Like there's a certain number of minutes I need my YouTube videos to be with thumbnails edited a certain way, and it's like you lost a lot of that early charm of like the early internet.
And you're saying that in parallel to like the film industry as well, is what you're saying?
Not necessarily, though. I guess it works, but I guess it's just back in those days, you would have thought that like everything was so hard to do on everything. Like back then, storage was a real thing. You had to actually pay a lot of money to store a lot of data, whereas now it's fucking free. Yeah. Data was impossible to come by. I remember like some of the early shows I watched had to be distributed on torrents because nobody could stream that much bandwidth. Like, and back
I
then,
remember
you're
like Red versus Blue and shit.
Yep, yeah. In the early
like
days
Windows
of
Media Player files.
Oh God, or like Real Media Player and shit, like these horrible, yeah. But and
like
you'd think like back then,
skins
like,
for it.
dude, if you had like more internet, more bandwidth, more space, like we could do so much cool shit. And now we have it, but everything is like ultra fucking commercialized, and like everything is the most consumer friendly shit.
And
Yeah.
it goes back to what you were talking about earlier, where it's literally just the fault of the consumer. Where
Yeah,
it's like,
basically, because it's what we
when you
prefer, yeah.
boil down what is commercially successful, you're just going to get like a statistical representation of the population, and it's mostly just normies. So it's like this is what the average person wants, not necessarily what a person like myself or you or anybody that I know or would talk to.
Yeah.
Wants,
Although,
but...
to be fair, even I have to admit that like my taste in everything can be incredibly basic. It's like it's kind of scary because like I have appreciation for higher arts, being involved in music and then trying to have like a more critical mind. But sometimes it's really easy to just sit back and watch a lot of stuff that's not very challenging. Like if I want to watch a film like The Lighthouse, I have to like be in a certain state of mind. But if I want to watch like another Iron Man or Thor movie, like I can just throw that shit on and just like, oh yeah, cool, it was fun.
Do you like typically enjoy those though, or do you consider them to be less of like a film experience and more of just like a zone out like popcorn chill?
It's like it's one of those things where like I enjoy shit content because it's like that dopamine. It feels good. But it's not the
like
same
passive.
Yeah, it's kind of like like I could browse Reddit memes for like 10 hours at a time because I'm just like, I can like fall prey to my brain like that. But it's never going to be the same experience as like finishing a book where you have like you almost are like sad. It's like a wistful or something experience. Like, oh, wow, yeah.
I know exactly what you mean, and that's why I would never there's a lot of people that do not see film in the same way that I do. And, you know, they're not looking to get like an experience and they're not looking to like be challenged by a movie. You know,
Yeah,
they
exactly,
want something like familiar. And that's perfectly fine and that's perfectly valid. And I even exhibit those exact same tendencies just on a different threshold. Like the range of what a film can be goes so incredibly far when you look at some like really experimental directors and just like what nonsense bullshit that they come up with. There's a Iranian director named Abbas Kiarostami, and all of his films are like incredibly meta. And he made this one from like 2008 called Shirin, and literally the entire movie was just like close-up shots of French and Iranian actresses watching either a play or a movie, but you never saw the play or the movie, but you heard it and you saw their faces as they reacted to it. And like the movie, it's feature length. And I watched it. I didn't watch the whole thing. I got enough of it and kind of skipped towards the end being like, oh, this does this the whole time, I guess. But like, I can understand somebody thinking the same way that I do about films, but having like a different threshold than me, or perhaps having a more personal experience to that particular film than me, and just being like totally into it. Like I'd imagine some critic types watching that and just like getting more out of it than I did. Because there's other movies that I really love that trying to explain them to, let's say, my parents, I would never, like, I wouldn't even begin to want to recommend this to them because they would just be like, I don't get it. Like, I've watched movies with my dad where he's like, isn't this kind of a pointless shot? It goes on for longer than it should. It's kind of pointless, isn't it? I'm like, you don't, you know, like there's more to it than that. But, you know, so it really, I don't know. Everybody has like a different experience. There's a movie that I really love. And my love for it was solidified on my second watch. It's called Jean Dielman 23 Quai du Commerce.
Oh, I love this movie. Yeah, for sure.
No way. Yeah. Exactly.
No, I've never heard of it.
It's like it's the nonsense, intentionally long title, and it's the feature-length debut of some like crazy art house feminist director from the 70s. And she made this movie where it's literally just like, okay, the setup for the film is there's a woman, her husband has died, she's unhappy with her life, she barely talks to her son, he comes over every once in a while and he feeds her. And the movie's like 3.5 hours long, and the vast like 99% of it is just her cleaning her house. But you watch it and it's like, it's really well shot and well framed, and it's well acted, but like basically nothing happens. Okay. And like the entire point of it to some extent is that you are supposed to feel as trapped in this life, in this world that she's experiencing as she is. And as you're going through the movie, and I fell in love with this movie on the second time that I watched it. The first time I watched it, I felt like it was kind of a meme. I went through the whole thing, but I like chatted with my friend over it. Sure. It's like, oh wow, like, you know, as you're going through the film, it's like you start to like pay attention to like different things that you might not pick up on if you're watching these same scenes or these same gestures or the same performances in any other film. Like, you notice these subtleties of like, without her saying a word, you're like, oh, like these eggs were spoiled. She had to go to the store for another one. She's like redoing this thing. Like, she sits down for like 5 seconds, gets back up, and then like starts cleaning again. It's like you see this like weird kind of like chaotic buildup going on in her mind that isn't even necessarily happening on screen, but it's just being communicated subtly. And it's really great, and it's really, I know it sounds like complete bullshit, but I would never want to recommend that movie to other people that from this description like just would be like, I would never want to watch that thing. Sure. Because it, like, you can't expect everybody to look at film in the same way and want to get the same things out of it. And there's tons of movies that I'd be like, this is too boring, and shut it off. Like, there's tons of movies where I react to that way about it. So yeah, it really depends. There's people that get really mad at me because I like a lot of these art house things. If I don't like another art house thing, where it's like,
sure.
I find this one to be a little pretentious, and there's this crowd that gets like really upset.
Yeah, well,
You were the chosen one. I guess I just quoted Star Wars. Oops.
oh, true. That is Star Wars.
Mm. That's what Star Wars is good for, is just prequel memes. That's about it.
Yeah.
There's this growing sentiment that the prequels are better than the new trilogy. I'm curious to hear what you have to say about it, even though I don't give a shit myself.
Yeah. I mean, I've gone back and I've watched parts of the prequels, and I unironically think that these are some of the best, like, unintentionally funny movies of all time. They're actually so bad. It's unbelievable. I think... Or go ahead.
Sorry. I had to rewatch them for my podcast because it's like a movie recommendation podcast, and my co-host recommended the prequels, and so I had to rewatch them. And what I did is I turned on the described video for the visually impaired
Okay.
on the Blu-ray, and so basically the entire movie was narrated with a very there's a lot of like really popular movies that will have this feature, and it's if it's a slog and you hate the movie, you got to turn it on because it makes it so much more watchable, because you get these scenes where it's like Jar Jar then sticks his tongue out and falls on his bottom, like literally, like as it's happening. I'm like, okay, this is different. This is like more of a meme now.
Interesting.
So
okay. I thought
that's
that the
how
new
I was able to tolerate it.
Yeah, I thought that the new ones tried to be more serious. I think they did some things okay, but I don't care that much about Star Wars stuff. And then two, I don't know, they just seemed like the going back and forth between directors. Like, if you did care, did you watch all three of the later ones?
Unfortunately, yes. And yeah, I agree. It seems like two different people fighting over what Star Wars should be in the same trilogy.
I got whiplash over. Like, I think I just distinctly remember the end of the first one was characterized by like, who are Rey's parents is the most important question in the universe. And then the ending of the second one was like the little kid like picks up the broom and it's like anybody can use the Force. And then the end of the third one is like actually wrong.
Rey
She's
Skywalker.
Actually like Palpatine's fucking or Luke's fucking daughter or whatever.
Should have said Rey Palpatine.
Yeah, it was like, okay, well, yeah, that was like really weird. Also, the kiss at the end with Kylo was so out of left field. I actually wasn't ready for it.
You just reminded me about that. I completely forgot about it.
It was the most like brotherly, sisterly rivalry ever. I was not ready for that. I was like, oh my God, holy shit, I was not ready. And then I'm willing to accept, like, I'm never going to be the guy in the theater who's like, well, by the laws of physics, this doesn't, or like, well, it doesn't make sense that they wouldn't have this on their ship, blah, blah, blah. However, the whole end of the like ninth movie, I guess, or whatever, or the third movie in that trilogy was so unbelievably contrived that I like my eyes were rolling out of my fucking head. Like,
it was disappointing for everybody, no matter where you were coming from.
Yeah, like,
if you liked it or hated it, it was somehow disappointing.
The magical like
nobody was happy with that.
12 million crew fleets with the strongest ships in the galaxy, where every ship could blow up 12 planets, but they all need like one little easily destroyable radar base to guide themselves off a planet. Like, they can't just fly up. Like, what the fuck? Like, all of that was just so contrived and like, oh, yeah. Like, couldn't you have
I never find myself getting too caught up in the logic part of the Star Wars movies because I don't get there mentally.
For sure.
I'm like already checked out before I get to the logic part.
Yeah, but I mean, like, at the very least, like in the sixth movie, or no, I'm sorry. Wait, when is he
episode 6 or third film?
Episode 6. I'm trying. There's the one, like the one where he shoots the proton torpedoes and blows up the Death Star. Like, it works narratively.
Wasn't that
5 or 6?
Episode 4?
4? Did he do it at the end of 4? He might have done it at the end of 4.
So that's the famous scene where he blows up the Death Star, I think, was in episode 4.
Okay, people are saying 4,
Wasn't
yeah.
it?
I don't remember, yeah,
Oh,
4. The end of the
got
first
it.
one. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Even if that's
I'm
like
the biggest Star Wars fan.
Nice
I'm a
job.
huge nerd.
Yeah. Even if that setup is contrived. So when I say contrived, I mean like clearly this only is like this because it works for the plot. Even though it's contrived, like narratively it works, you know, oh, he's become a Jedi, trust, like sure, it makes sense. But like when things are contrived for like the purpose of just being contrived, or there's not even like a good like story reason to do it, like I don't know, that just makes me roll my eyes hard. I don't know.
Well, because they were they always were just falling back on let's just do what the other ones did, which
Yeah, I guess.
I
Yeah.
thought was acceptable in episode 7 because
sure.
it's like, okay, this is just a jumping off point,
Mhm.
right? And then I guess episode 8 jumped off too far, and then they brought it back.
The whole casino section in episode 8, I'm still not entirely sure what the fuck that was for. I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, the most disappointing. This is the okay. I don't feel very strongly about a lot of movie things. This is the one thing I will fight.
Is this a different movie?
No, it's a TV series. I will die on this.
Okay,
hill.
can I get you to hold this thought while I
Hold
pee
it.
real quick?
Go pee. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I'll be right back.
Okay. Be careful. We're gonna hit him up with the Game of Thrones. Okay, it's the worst piece of media of all time. That's the one. Do you guys want a hot take? Putting the little like sippy weird thing on the ends of anything makes any liquid instantly taste way better. I don't know why. It does it with Gatorade. It does it with water. Oh, real quick. Where do I get zinc at? Can I just build the final tier of spacesuit? I don't want to build the tier 3 and then go through this whole fucking process over again. But I don't know if the tier 2 suit will let me survive. I don't know why I'm asking you. None of you guys know. Oh, Lake of Bob is here. Jupiter. Can I go to Jupiter? I built the final thermal padding, but I don't know where this... I don't know if I can go to Jupiter with the tier 2 suit. Oh, wait, actually, I might be able to just search for zinc. Neptune. I think I can go to Neptune.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. The worst piece of media of all time, and when I say of all time, I mean at my incredibly limited viewing library of the past 10 years, okay?
Sure.
Is motherfucking Game of Thrones. Did you watch it? Did you follow it?
I watched the first 3 episodes and thought, why would I continue if I don't give a shit about anybody? And then never watched another one and enjoyed the entire downfall that everybody else was experiencing from afar.
Oh my god. What a... Oh, fuck. I can't complain about that then. Just, wow. It's whatever you think you know about pain and suffering, you don't. You just don't unless
So, are you more so just upset with where it went and you enjoyed it to begin with, or...?
The problem is that you shouldn't be able to take something and ruin it that much. Did you watch Firefly?
No, but I know what it is.
Yeah, if you know the pain of those people not getting another season of that show, this is like that on fucking crack.
That's different. That's getting canceled and then getting like.
But they felt a pain. Yes,
movie.
But Game of Thrones got
like,
canceled in our hearts.
The writers went ahead of where the books went because George R.R. Martin doesn't write very fast.
They didn't just get ahead, okay? Have you seen The Wire?
I bought the series but haven't started it yet.
Have you seen The Sopranos?
It's supposed to be fantastic. I've seen a bit of The Sopranos but haven't. Yeah.
Fuck. Wait,
I know. I've seen a lot more movies than I have TV right now, but
okay, what are some of your favorite movies?
Of all time?
Yeah, a few. No Japanese film allowed. Go.
Okay. The Holy Mountain's my favorite movie. Synecdoche, New York is my second favorite movie. The Lion King is my third favorite movie. Furry trash, whatever.
Okay.
Eternal Sunshine up there.
Okay, imagine if at the end of The Lion King, okay? I've seen The Lion King and The Eternal Sunshine. I haven't seen them 1 and 2. Imagine if at the end of The Lion King, okay? Imagine if Simba, through defeating Scar, was able to open a rift in time and bring his father, Mufasa, back to life, okay?
Oh, no.
Imagine
how
disappointed
about that shit. Yeah.
No. If that were to be the ending of that movie, you're starting to get on the level where you can look up the mountain and see at the peak the disappointment that Game of Thrones fans like. You're not even close to it, but you can see. This is the level of disappointment I'm talking is unfathomable. It is a pain that most people could never dream of experiencing. But you'll never see it all. But like, just trust me, okay?
Yeah.
That's when I say it's bad, okay?
Oh, I trust you. My other 2 podcast co-hosts on Sardonicast had a discussion about it. and I was there and didn't say anything because I didn't watch the show, but I remember bits and pieces about what they said, and it did seem very disappointing. So you stuck with the whole thing, though, and like, what would you say was the moment where you stopped enjoying it? So it's like mostly to do with how it ended, right?
Kind of,
It's
yeah.
Still
so
the impression I'm getting.
the long and short of it is that basically, so I don't like. Well, I shouldn't say this. I'm not a big fan usually of like knights and princesses and medieval stuff. It's just not stuff that I'm normally into.
Me neither. I like Lord of the Rings though.
Yeah, same actually. And I really, really, really don't like when people are edgy for the sake of being edgy. So whenever I heard like Game of Thrones described, people was like, Game of Thrones is so good because they always kill all your favorite characters. And it's like, okay, this sounds like,
That
wow.
was the thing I heard also.
Exactly. And it sounds like so like edgy and pretentious. And I was like, I don't care, blah, blah. And then there was some girl I met off Tinder and she insisted, she's like, oh, like you should come over, we should watch, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, whatever, I'll get later and we'll watch fucking Game of Thrones, whatever. And I watched the first season.
HBO and chill.
Yes, I watched the first season, and this was, aside from The Wire, this is my favorite season of anything I ever watched in my entire life. I thought it was so cool. The whole meme about like, oh, characters dying or whatever. The cool thing about Game of Thrones is that everything is super ultra gray. Like there were no good characters and there were no bad characters, and there were consequences for every single action, even if you thought you were doing the right thing. So like a lot of people that ended up dying kind of died because of stuff they did earlier, but they didn't even do necessarily bad things. It was just like, because you did this, it set this into motion, and I really liked that. That the idea of like having like a world of consequence, that was so cool to me. Yeah. And then by season 5, it turned into Lord of the Rings, where you had like, this is the archetypical good guy, these are the archetypical bad guys, and that's it. And it's like, oh, and that's not bad, but that wasn't what Game of Thrones was about. And like around like season 4 and 5, when that turn happened, that's when I started to hate it. Because then you all of a sudden, like, whereas before you had like really good characters that made really good and noble decisions, and they died because they were naive. And I was like, dude, that's not supposed to happen in like fantasy medieval stuff. But then by the time season 5 rolls around, those really good characters are making the same choices, but now they're saved by plot armor every single time. And it's like, okay. So that's basically why like I think Game of Thrones like changed so much and I stopped liking it. But a lot of people loved it because they liked the dragons and the explosions, and for all the reasons why I didn't watch it originally, because I thought that's what it had, that's what it became later on. Okay, and that's why I fucking hated what it turned into. Yeah.
So you have seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind? I have.
But not... That's a really sad...
Oh, what do you think about it?
That's a really sad movie. I think this is a Jim Carrey one, right? Wait, I'm not mixing this up with the...
It is Jim Carrey.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I remember watching it a long time ago, and I remember thinking it was a very, very sad movie.
And so the same screenwriter of that film, his directorial debut is Synecdoche, New York, which is my second favorite movie.
Gotcha. Okay.
And he also made his most recent film, I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which is on Netflix. And also he made the stop-motion Anomalisa. So those are his 3 directorial movies. And he also wrote Being John Malkovich. I don't know if you saw.
Oh, I haven't.
And Adaptation.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay, so you've only seen Eternal Sunshine.
Yep,
all right.
Correct.
I would highly, highly recommend to you Synecdoche, New York. I will preface this by saying... it's a movie that you haven't seen unless you've seen it twice, sort of thing.
Okay.
But I don't know. Like, you seem, from what I gather, like pretty into certain like psychology, sort of.
Yeah, it really just depends. There's like a lot of different. Like my two favorite.
There's a lot of like incredibly philosophical shit going on in that movie.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's a lot to unpack in it. But it's one of very few movies that one of very few movies that insists on being interpreted but can live up to why that is the case. Gotcha. There's a lot of movies that insist on being explored but are not as deep as they think they are. Synecdoche, New York is like the most meta film ever made in existence, possibly, with some, I don't know, there might be others, but
okay,
it's
interesting.
just like it's a journey. And same with my favorite movie, The Holy Mountain, but for very different reasons. Synecdoche, New York is like a intellectual journey, whereas The Holy Mountain is like a spiritual journey.
Interesting.
And those are my two favorite movies.
Okay. I will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll think. Or not, I think about it.
Please,
I'll watch it.
Please do, because I would like to hear your opinions on it.
Okay. Yeah. I'll add it to my watch list. Me and Melina, Melina makes me watch movies, and I watch movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
it's not. These
what?
movies are not for everybody. I wouldn't advertise them to somebody wanting a
Fun recreational
traditional plot structure. They're both very entertaining. Neither of them are boring, in my opinion. They're nothing to the degree of that Jean Dielman 3.5-hour cleaning her house movie. They're not like that.
Gotcha.
So don't get that impression. But they're very non-literal. They're very symbolic and metaphorical. Almost like you've probably seen something like, I don't know, Mulholland Drive or something, right?
I think so. A long time ago. This is an older movie, right?
It's like kind of, yeah. That was like 98 around.
I think I watched this in high school, but I don't remember it at all.
Yeah, it is a watch in high school movie, I guess. But yeah, it's like kind of in that same vein where it's like there is a plot, but at the same time there are things about this plot that will undeniably not make sense, but they're supposed to not make sense because there's more things happening than just the plot that you're supposed to be thinking about, sort of.
Gotcha.
Thing.
Did you ever watch, or like, I think it's called Primer?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's same. I was talking about the guy who let the documentary use his soundtrack, same director of Upstream Color. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And now he's canceled. Actually.
Oh shit! What did he do? Or what did he do?
Sorry,
that was a really dark joke.
He went on this like really unhinged Twitter thing where basically, I guess he was dating the actress from Upstream Color, and then he just had a mental breakdown after his newest film project couldn't get funded because he's like a super indie boy and doesn't want to work in the system.
Okay.
And I guess just gave up, and then just like casually took a photo of his restraining order placed on him from the lead actress of his previous film.
Okay.
And then people were like, what the fuck is this about? And then he made all these, like, he literally, like, he leaked the script and all of the soundtrack that he was working on of his newest project. Like, it's never going to happen. Here it is, everybody. And just, like, had this weird mental breakdown. And I love his movies. And, yeah, I've seen Primer, to answer your question.
Okay.
Yeah, that was, what do you think of it?
Of the story you tell me, or of Primer?
Primer, yeah.
Oh, Primer. I liked it. I thought it was cool. I don't have any complaints. I don't think the concept and everything's cool. I really admire projects like that. I think are really cool.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Like the two films he's made, Primer was like $7,000, and then Upstream Color was like, I don't know, $20,000-$30,000, filmed like on a Panasonic GH5 or some shit.
Yeah.
Just like really super. The man knows how to make a lot with a little, and he stars in his movies, directs them, does the soundtrack. Like, the guy's clearly incredibly talented, and I hope he still makes movies, even if, I don't know, he's
canceled.
He might be a shitbag or something.
That's what I kind of felt. Fuck. My movie tastes are so much more accessible. So I'm sorry if these are offensive to you, but something
I don't mind at all. I like
Gotcha.
talking about them.
A movie that was so surprising to me, I couldn't believe it when I watched this movie. This is like fucking 15 years ago or some shit. Fucking Apocalyptico. I couldn't believe when I watched it. I was like, this is Mel Gibson?
Apocalypto?
Oh, Apocalypto, not Apocalypto. Sorry.
Yeah.
Apocalypto. I was like, oh my God. It's kind of sad that we missed,
it's really weird.
Like 20 years of like Gibson films because of his crazy anti-Semitic racist shit.
I never even like really looked up the full extent of everything that has earned him that label.
Man, it's one
I've
of those
just
things
known
where
that it has been a label, but I didn't look into it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you hear it and you're like, man, I don't think it was that bad. And then you go and you listen to the phone call and you're like, yeah, it was that bad. Like, okay.
There's a phone call?
Oh, yeah, there's a phone call. It's pretty bad.
Give me the deets.
Well, like, he's just like...
Give me the TLDR.
I don't know. Isn't he basically tell, like, his ex something like, oh, I don't want you dating any N-word, blah, blah, blah. Like, don't suck any N-word dick or whatever. It's like, it's a really bad phone call. It's like, yeah, okay, fuck.
Great.
Like, yeah, it's pretty bad. It's like, okay, yeah, I understand, but...
Yeah. Did you ever see that... you might not know of this director or have seen any of his films, but you might know of this incident at Cannes Film Festival, where a Danish art house director known as Lars von Trier I guess admitted to being a Nazi in a press conference, but like no one's really sure what he meant because he's just such a weird guy, and like a lot of people were like he was just joking, and he probably was, I guess, kind of. I
Yeah.
don't know what he was like. It's really watching it. It's so difficult to understand what he was even going for, but it goes on for like 2 minutes, and the best part about it is like his cast members are around him, including what's her name? I'm blanking on her name. Mary Jane from the Spider-Man movies. Kirsten Dunst.
Okay.
It was in his movie, and this entire time you can see her slowly dying inside as he's like, "No, I found out I was really a Nazi, and I saw, I thought of Hitler, and he was, in this bunker, and I thought I really understand the man." She's like, "Please stop!" She's like grabbing his arm, and you can see her like recoiling in cringe and terror. Like this is at a press conference at Cannes Film Festival. He's like, "There will come a point at the end of this. I promise there will come a point," and then till he finally just says, "Okay, I'm a Nazi," and then he gets banned from Cannes Film Festival for like 3 years, and then his next film gets back into it, so they release the ban just because he's a fucking weirdo anyway. Like,
Sure. Interesting.
no one's really sure what he's ever trying to say. I don't think he even knows what he's trying to say, but it was really funny. Yeah, Nymphomaniac is what he made. Nymphomaniac, Dancer in the Dark, Antichrist, Dogville, Melancholia. His films are really hit or miss, but no. Definitely watch that press conference. It's like 2 minutes long. It's really funny.
Okay.
just for Kirsten Dunst slowly dying inside.
Let's see. Did you see? Man, 2019 was just a sad year for movies. No, not 2019. I'm sorry.
What?
2020. I'm sorry. 2020.
No,
was
it
such a
was.
sad movie-
2020 wasn't even a sad year for movies either. But also I did like 3 film festivals that were online.
Oh well, aren't you?
It was a sad year for big box office movies. It was a sad year for Disney movies, maybe. Like, but it wasn't a sad year for movies. There was a lot of good shit that came out.
Oh well. Do you have like a survival guide to 2020 for those of us that felt super fucked?
Yeah, sure. There's so there was a really great documentary. Actually, your chat would love it. It's about Pepe the Frog. It's called Feels Good Man.
I watched
Did you watch that?
I watched your video on it. But it
Okay,
sounds
sure.
really good.
it's awesome.
Your review made me want to watch it a lot. So I probably
Great. Well,
will.
it's out on digital right now. There's
Yeah.
a Blu-ray and shit.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah, Feels Good Man. That's a great, awesome documentary. There's let's see. I'm going through some stuff trying to figure out like what's currently out right now. There's a film called I think Black Bear that was pretty good. That's coming out. Yeah, that's coming out in. It's either out now or it's coming out in December 4th digitally. It's got Aubrey Plaza and Christopher Abbott, and it was pretty good. Interesting kind of indie thing. Oh man, there's a crazy movie called Caught in the Net, and it is from which country is it? Czech Republic, I think. And it's like To Catch a Predator on steroids, and it's like the most disturbing. Oh my god! It's basically they took like 3 different. They did a casting call for 3 different female actors who looked of younger age, got them to pretend they're 12, and basically set up this like this studio streamer house thing where they were baiting all these pedophiles in the Czech Republic, and I like what happens in it dramatically and how much of it you see. Like they blur out everybody's faces for legal reasons, I guess. But it's real. It's not only like really explicit, but it's like incredibly like viscerally disturbing and just so fucked up. Like huge emotional impact. It's called Caught in the Net. Yeah, that was definitely one of the most like engaged I've been in a film all year, even if the emotion wasn't pleasant.
Sure.
But I guess that's what it's going for.
Yeah.
There's an Iranian film called There Is No Evil, which was really great. It's like 4 different stories that are all based on government mandated killing, like executions, just like their impact on people's lives.
Did you ever watch a movie called? Sorry, just because you bring that up. Have you ever seen a movie called The
I don't mind.
Platform?
The what? Sorry?
The Platform. The one
Oh,
where
I
there's
hated
like
that movie.
you
The
hated it.
Spanish movie on Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was bullshit.
Why did you think it was bullshit?
I mean,
Why
I
did you
didn't
hate
think
it?
it was like the worst thing ever made. It was just one of those like, man, there are so many great foreign films out every year, and this is the one that gets popular.
Yeah.
Like this is the one that everybody's talking about. It felt like a worse version of The Cube. It felt like just shit didn't make sense. It wasn't very well acted. It was just like it was so preachy too in like the what it was trying to communicate. It was really weird how like heavy-handed they were being, and it was just like it's just kind of boring and schlocky. I really did not like the platform.
Huh. Okay, gotcha. I didn't feel very strong about it. I was just curious, but I know that was like one foreign film that got like really popular.
I know, right?
What do you think about? Have you ever seen the movie Pan's Labyrinth? What do you think about that movie?
I love that movie. It's probably my favorite. Actually, definitely my favorite Guillermo del Toro movie.
Oh, okay, cool. That's like one of my favorite movies of all time. I really like that movie.
Yeah, it's awesome. It might be my number one of what was it? 2005?
I don't
2006.
I think two of my favorite movies of all time are Pan's Labyrinth, and then have you ever seen a French movie called I think it's called Amélie from something?
Yes, that's my roommate's either favorite movie or one of his favorite movies, and I watched it once a long time ago, and I remember really liking it. Despite watching it at a younger age, there are aspects to its visual presentation and editing that stick out in my mind, which is a really good indicator that I'll enjoy it again as an adult because I'm remembering like how it was shown, not just like what happened. Like I remember the entire the pacing of the intro scene, and I only saw this once like when I was a lot younger. But I remember this whole like close camera angles, almost like if I remember correctly, like almost kind of like a fisheye lens, but not really, but like really kind of quick pacing intro, giving you the exposition of like the character sort of thing.
Yeah, there was a lot of I have a big appreciation, I think because, well, probably because I watch so much American film, I guess. I have a really big appreciation for stuff that's edited in like clever or different ways, I guess. So like obviously very accessible, very enjoyable, but I really like every fucking Edgar Wright film. Like anything he makes, really I'll probably watch it and love it. Like anything, and the Amelie had like a lot of like really cool editing tricks and stuff like that. That was like a little bit non-conventional,
Yeah, I would like to see that again for sure. I think I would definitely enjoy it. And yeah, so all the pretty much all the shit that I just listed of stuff that I enjoyed from this year was just from one of the 3 film festivals that I did online. Yeah, I find that film festival stuff is where I find most of the movies that I really enjoy in a year. But you still have to know what you're looking for if you attend a film festival or, the online stuff this year or anything.
For sure.
You still have to like have a good idea of like why you're watching something. Otherwise, if you just pick random shit, you're going to have a bad time. They have to fill up their program somehow. Yeah. But yeah. Oh man, Wolfwalkers was awesome. It's like kind of a kids movie. If you ever, it's from like this Irish animation studio that made Song of Kells and The Breadwinner and one other thing I guess you probably haven't heard of if you haven't heard of these other 2.
No.
Okay. Man, but yeah, I hope this one puts them on the map. They get Oscar nominated every single year but never win because Disney Pixar, I guess. But I'm really hoping that this year that like Soul isn't amazing or something. The new Pixar thing. I'm hoping that the Academy recognizes them because it would just be awesome. It really sucks because they're like doing Apple TV Plus for Wolfwalkers, which I saw at the film festival, but it's being wide released on Apple TV Plus. And so now it's like, okay, this digital streaming platform that as it started out, I was like, you'll never have any good content. I don't need to buy you. Is now getting some good shit. It's got that. It's got the new Werner Herzog documentary. I'm like, oh, fuck. God damn
Wait,
it.
which platform was this on, you said?
Apple TV Plus.
Apple TV Plus. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. It's either out now or out very soon on Apple TV Plus.
What do you
But
think?
yeah, it's like
Well, I
so
guess it's pretty
frustrating. These
basic,
different
like,
streaming platforms, just like we're going back to cable. Basically, you're gonna be spending just
lots of
as
money.
much
Yeah, I was gonna ask,
to have to get everything.
do you have any strong thoughts on the people like charging money to see individual films now on these platforms? So I think Disney Plus started this with.
Oh, like what?
Was it Mulan? Did they do this? Where people, I think
That was a experiment. I don't know if they'll ever do that again, because I'm pretty sure Mulan underperformed from what I heard.
did it?
Otherwise, I think if they did that and it was hugely successful, they'd be doing the same thing with Soul, but they're not. Right now, the market, the lucrative part of having a streaming platform is just getting people to sign up for a monthly subscription and forget that they own a subscription to your thing, basically. So that's all they're trying to do, and that's all they should be doing. I don't know if any other streaming platform has decided, hey, pay a subscription plus money for this new film. That was just a greedy Disney thing that it seems like they've already given up on.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, just paying for an individual film without the subscription is just akin to just, I don't know, iTunes or just any other digital release that's already existed.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Or Amazon, yeah, you're right. Sorry, I was reading chat.
No, you're good.
Which I should never do. I see my roommate in chat. I didn't even tell you I was streaming with Destiny. How'd you get here?
Is your roommate somebody? Should I know who this is? Is this like somebody who appears in videos?
You shouldn't know who he is, but if people want to follow Sikkab, Sikkab, he is a Twitch streamer. Just not a big one or anything. He's trying to grow his shit.
Gotcha.
I've technically got a streamer house because both of my roommates stream on Twitch, but it's not really a streamer house.
Sure, close
It's
enough.
not like notable streamers or anything. And we lived together before we all started streaming on Twitch, so it just happened to work out that way.
Nice. Do you stream on Twitch like regularly or?
Yeah, I stream every Sunday consistently. Under Adam Plays, ADUMPLAZE, which is my gaming channel name. Every Sunday we do video games, and then random points in between, depending on what part of the process I'm on with my film review shit, I'll be streaming like my editing stream. So I stream editing my podcast, I stream editing my larger YMS reviews, or like going over different edits that other editors have made from my gaming channel videos if I'm making a couple changes to those. So but yeah, there's other days like where I'll be spending the entire day doing just voiceover narration for reviews, which I don't stream. Yeah.
Interesting.
My other roommate is Vexel_TV. If anybody wants to follow them in
all the
chat.
plugs in here.
Yeah. Taking advantage of it. That's the only reason I wanted to talk to you.
It's to plug your roommates.
I was just biding my time. Yeah,
Twitters.
plugging my roommates.
Or on Twitch is. Nice job.
Yeah, it is on Twitch, yeah.
What's this guy's name? Your movie sucks. You guys know this guy. Don't be dumb. Spoilers.
Your movie sucks on YouTube.
Oh, here's like a random thing. I don't know if you even have a strong.
Sure.
Okay, because I liked horror films. I really like. I've watched like not every old, but a lot of the old horror films and shit. One of the worst movies I saw of all time. Actually, I wanted to watch through this whole thing and do very rare, like just go through all the reasons why I hate this movie. Is this movie in? I think it was 2018, 2016. I think it was 2018. Fucking the Halloween movie. I thought it was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, was it the one where they brought back Jamie Lee Curtis?
Yes.
Yeah,
There
I
was
thought
just
it was
like
stupid, and I
so
forgot
much,
most of it.
yeah, questionable, stupid shit in that movie. It drove me crazy. I hated it.
I don't
so
even
much.
like. I watched the original Halloween a long time ago, and I'm like not even. I don't know. I was younger, but it didn't stick with me in the same way that other popular slasher horror franchises from the time did. Like I still love like Nightmare on Elm Street stuff.
Yeah.
And I still, even though the Friday the 13th movies were incredibly stupid, they're still a bit nostalgic for me. Halloween, it's just like I didn't retain much of those.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if this is true or not, but I super wonder. I wonder if Halloween would have been as popular if Friday the 13th didn't exist. 'Cause I feel like for a large part of my childhood, I just mixed these two people up a lot. Like Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees were just like the same person in my adolescent mind.
Well, because for like, I don't know, Halloween came before Friday the 13th.
Hmm.
And then for a while, like, I thought that, you're always supposed to have this thing in mind of like which film solidified and paved the way and did it first sort of thing. And I thought for a while that Halloween was like, some sort of landmark thing for the slasher genre, and maybe in ways it was. But then I'm finding out like, oh, Black Christmas was way before that. So like, I don't know, what is the first slasher movie?
Hmm.
What is, I guess like there's certain parts of the formula that maybe it brought to the forefront in some ways. I don't know. I just found it like maybe I just had to be alive at the time. Maybe
Hmm.
I just had to be a teenager in the 70s or something to really appreciate Halloween, but I just never really got into that particular horror franchise despite me liking a lot of horror films.
Hmm. Okay, this is the final movie take. Okay, before I
Sure.
go to sleep, I really didn't like the original Blade Runner. I really like Blade Runner 2049.
Mhm. I feel the same way using a bit less strong feelings about it. So
Okay.
I don't like the original Blade Runner as a entertainment watch it movie. I appreciate it more than I enjoy watching it. If I'm going to put on a movie
Hmm.
and I'm going to watch it for my own enjoyment or even with some friends over, I am not going to put on the original Blade Runner. However, I could put on the Blade Runner 2049 movie because I enjoy that one a lot more.
Sure.
The original Blade Runner, the reason why, again, we were just talking about like what paved the way for other films. Like the imprints of the original Blade Runner, the fingerprints, let's say, are found on so many other films
Hmm.
that came after it for the next 20, 30 years.
Sure.
It inspired a lot, not only in terms of like tone, but in terms of like visual aesthetics. Um, it was really an influential film
Yeah, for sure.
that without it we would not have The Matrix, Dark City, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
So in that way, and also I guess even technically like the miniatures in the original Blade Runner, a lot of the effects were like really cool and impressive. It had a lot of cool ideas also.
Sure. Yeah, I can
Um,
appreciate that. Yeah.
but yeah, I think that as a film that I enjoy watching, Blade Runner 2049 is much better. And I love Denis Villeneuve. I think he's awesome.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I agree with you there. Blade Runner 2049 is much more memorable. Uh, there's just much more going for it in terms of like what I want out of a movie.
Yeah, I felt like.
I might never watch the original Blade Runner again, even
Mhm.
though I like it and appreciate it. I might never watch it again because like why would I if I don't
Yeah.
really get like an enjoyable experience out of it?
Generally, when I watch sequels, usually for me, sequels that miss the mark are usually like somebody saw the original and they wanted to make a sequel and they had no idea why the original was good.
Yeah.
And I felt like with Blade Runner 2049, I felt like somebody watched the original and was like, "Oh my god, I totally see what they're trying to do," and then just fucking absolutely crushed it in 21. Like, I felt like, or at least it feels to me like, I guess if we're looking like really deeply into it, it's like, oh, like what makes something, like special or not special, but what's the difference between like a robot and a human, like a sufficiently advanced robot and a human. Like it's kind of like in a sci-fi way, it's what the first one. And I thought in 2049, like because I'm pretty sure if you're a normal human being, you feel really sad when like the fake robot lady gets crushed in like his little disc thing. And like this is like a robot companion that's supposed to be a lesser life form than the main character who is a robot. And the fact that you even like have an emotional connection to that character is like, oh, like it feels like the movie like super achieved, like at least insofar as that goes and what it set out to achieve. And yeah, I don't know, I really like the performances in the movie. I really like that movie. I thought it was a really cool movie. I liked all the ideas and everything. Yeah.
Denis Villeneuve has always been very, very respectful about the subject matters that he tackles. He has directed movies on real life events that are incredibly respectful. One about the Polytechnique school shooting in Montreal, one that is loosely based off of like a crisis in a war in Lebanon called Incendie, which is a really great movie. He's French Canadian, by the way.
Okay.
So some of his movies are French. But yeah, like that. I think that's part of why Blade Runner 2049 turned out so great, is because he actually cares about approaching not just the subjects, but like the subject matter, like the what he's taking from. He is very respectful about what it is and translates that in a great way, which is why I don't give a shit about Dune. I've never read the book. I've never seen the David Lynch version, but I'm hyped for Dune, and I'm assuming, hopefully, I don't know, that the fans would be happy with it too, because if he's tackling this project, if he's saying that he likes Dune and he wants to bring it to other people in his vision, I trust him with that. And he's also still got Roger Deakins on cinematography too, so, I mean, yeah,
Cool.
I'm really happy with Denis Villeneuve. Have you seen any of his other movies? Prisoners, Enemy,
Nope, I don't think I haven't seen any of those. No.
Arrival?
Oh, I did watch
2016?
Arrival. An interesting movie. I like it. Yeah. Despite
Arrival is really good.
Yeah.
Not in his top 3 or anything for me, but
Gotcha. Story-wise, it is very, very, very hard for me to care about things generally that involve time travel. Usually, whenever any concept like that is brought up, I usually immediately hate it. But
you like Primer?
Primer was an okay movie. Yeah. Yeah, I like Primer. I thought it was cool.
But like generally, you hate time travel.
In terms of like, yes, almost always, because it feels much like it's like that ultra Deus Ex Machina. Do you do anime at all?
I love Death Note.
Okay. Have you ever seen Steins Gate?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Fuck. Okay, never mind. That's the only thing that has time travel that I think is like really respectable. Arrival did it decently well. I thought Arrival did it decently well.
Okay. Yeah, because my biggest issue with time travel is that I don't care what the rules are that the film sets up. I just want the film to follow the rules that it sets up. So something like Looper, I'm like, you explained what this is about, and you're not even following it right.
Sure, yeah.
You know?
Generally, my issue with time travel is that usually when time travel is introduced, it's a way to escape consequence. And so everything feels really cheap is usually the reason why I don't like it past that point.
Did you watch 12 Monkeys, the film?
No, I have not.
Oh, man. That's like... I've got 2 movies that come to mind in terms of time travel movies that don't contradict the rules that they set up. One of them being Primer, and the other one being 12 Monkeys. 12 Monkeys is much more accessible. It's not an indie film. It's not a
okay.
You know, it's a very mainstream accessible film, but it's really great in the sense that it's like, oh, it sets up rules and it doesn't break those rules with time travel. It's really nice.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right, thank you for having me on. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for chatting. You can always stop by if you want. Cool. Otherwise, have fun.
Thank you so much.
Out. Yeah.
Peace out. Bye-bye.
See you later, man. Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.
Say N-word, N-word, N-word. Can I say it? Can I say it? I want to say it so bad.